Imagine one day you step into a room, the dim, hazy light shining on the familiar face of your most beloved person, the one who used to hug you tight every night, telling funny stories that made you laugh until tears streamed down your face. But now they look at you with empty eyes, no longer remembering what your name is. Their body is pitifully thin, their favorite sweater hanging loosely like it's draped over a rack, having lost over 20 pounds, without anyone knowing why. They sit silently for hours, in an old armchair, lacking the strength to stand up, each feeble breath like a desperate battle to cling to life. The scariest thing isn't that scene itself, but the truth that these signs didn't come suddenly. They've been quietly creeping in for an entire year, stealthy like a thief in the dark, but you brush them off, telling yourself, "Oh, it's just old age." Millions of families across America face this agonizing reality every year. Mothers, fathers, grandparents slowly fading away before their eyes, all because no one recognized the body's warnings. And if you don't stop, if you don't pay attention right now, the next one could be you or the person you love most, leaving behind only regrets that can't be undone. Old age isn't just about wrinkles on the face or white hair blowing in the wind. It's also about the silent signals, foreshadowing the final year of life, signs that, if noticed early, can help you prepare better and make the most of every precious moment together. In this article, I'll guide you through 5 specific signs, backed by science, illustrated with real, tearful stories, and reinforced by big data from America itself, so you won't miss a single warning from your loved one's body. This isn't just information, it's a chance for you to act, to turn their final days into unforgettable memories. Read to the end to understand clearly, and do the right thing right now, because time doesn't wait for anyone, and once it's gone, you'll never get it back. Sign 1. Significant weight loss. Have you ever noticed your loved one's favorite dress or suit now hanging loosely on their body, as if they're gradually vanishing before your eyes? Unintentional weight loss, not from dieting or trying to shed a few pounds to fit into old jeans, is one of the earliest and most frightening signs that their body is slowly shutting down. It's not just about losing a few pounds. It's a whisper from their body that it no longer has the strength to keep going as it once did. When the digestive system slows down, when the body can't properly absorb nutrients from the meals that sustained them through so many years, their muscles start to waste away, leaving behind a frail shadow of the person you once knew. Picture this: the one who used to lift you up with strong arms now doesn't have the strength to hold a glass of water, all starting with those pounds disappearing unnoticed. Think of Mary, 78 years old, who used to be the soul of her family's kitchen in a small town in Ohio. Every Sunday, she amazed everyone with her roast chicken and fragrant mashed potatoes, the aroma wafting through the house like a reminder of love. But now, the kitchen is silent. She only eats a few spoonfuls of chicken soup her daughter painstakingly prepared, then pushes the bowl away with tired eyes, saying, "I'm full." Her clothes hang on her like someone else's robe, and in just 6 short months, she's lost 15 pounds without knowing why. Her daughter, Lisa, used to think it was just age until Mary fell in the living room because her body was too weak, her legs no longer strong enough to hold her up. Now, every time Lisa looks at her mother, all she feels is fear. It's like mom is fading away from me, day by day, and I can't do anything to hold her back. This isn't rare. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), 20% of people over 65 in America experience unintentional weight loss, a number that makes you jump when you learn. It increases the risk of death by 50% within 5 years. That's because as muscles waste away, strength fades too, the risk of falls rises, the immune system weakens, and hidden diseases like cancer or heart failure quietly emerge. Maybe Mary no longer feels hungry like before, her sense of taste dulled, making favorite foods just a distant memory. Her body is signaling it doesn't need much fuel anymore, but that doesn't mean you're powerless. Don't try to force them to eat big meals to regain the lost pounds. That only makes them more uncomfortable. Instead, try easy-to-digest foods, like a warm bowl of soup or a sweet fruit smoothie, things gentle on the stomach that still offer some nutrition. What matters isn't the weight they gain back, but the comfort you bring them in these days. If you see your loved ones starting to thin out, their clothes getting looser, or losing interest in meals, don't ignore it. It's not just a sign of aging. It's the first warning that time is slipping faster than you think, and every moment you can make them smile is worth more than ever. Sign 2. Extreme fatigue and weakness. Have you ever looked at your loved one, someone once brimming with life, walking long roads with a radiant smile, now reduced to a weary figure, sitting still as if every movement is an unbearable burden? Persistent fatigue and extreme weakness aren't the result of a hard day's work or a sleepless night. They're a clear sign that their body is conserving its last bits of energy, like a car running low on gas, struggling to finish the short stretch ahead. When the heart starts pumping weaker, when blood circulation no longer flows strong through every tiny vessel, the body can't produce enough energy for even the simplest tasks, like standing up from a chair, walking from one room to another, or just holding a glass of water. This isn't laziness or lack of will. It's their body whispering that it's entering its final days. And with every passing minute, you can feel life slipping away from them bit by bit. Think of John, 82 years old, a man who was once the pride of a small neighborhood in Texas. Every morning he'd step outside in his old sneakers, walking around the block, waving to neighbors, and sharing stories of his youth. But now, he just sits in a worn armchair in the living room, his sunken eyes staring into the distance. One day, his son Michael placed a glass of water on the table right beside him, less than 2 feet away, but John shook his head faintly, whispering, "I can't hold it anymore, son." From a man who once carried 50-pound bags of dog food without a struggle, he's now a frail shadow, unable to leave his chair all day. Michael stood there, helpless, feeling like he was watching his father, his hero, lose his vitality day by day, hour by hour, with no way to pull him back. This isn't uncommon in America. The National Institutes of Health (NIH) shows that 30% of people over 70 report severe fatigue, a number startling enough when you realize it's linked to a 40% higher risk of hospitalization. When the heart can't pump blood effectively, when muscles don't get enough oxygen, the body shifts to hibernation mode, sleeping more, resting longer, and refusing activities that once brought joy. But the most heartbreaking part isn't the body's weakening, it's the disappointment in their eyes when they realize they're no longer themselves. They might pull back from conversations, refuse to leave the house, not because they don't love you, but because they no longer have the strength to show it. Don't try to force them to stand up or push through like they used to. That only adds pressure and sadness. Instead, accept their limits. Set up their bed near the bathroom so they don't have to walk far. Place a soft pillow behind their back and let them rest without feeling guilty. If you see your loved one growing more exhausted, unable to do things that were once simple, don't overlook it. It's a warning that their body is slowing down. Stay by their side, hold their hand, and cherish every moment you still can, because the helplessness you feel today will be nothing compared to the regret when they're no longer here. Sign 3. Cognitive confusion or withdrawal. Have you ever imagined the moment your dearest loved one, someone who used to tell you their life stories with sparkling eyes, suddenly looks at you like a stranger, no longer remembering who you are? When their memory fades, when they grow distant, cold like an invisible wall rising between you, it's not just a sign of age. It's a painful warning that their brain is weakening, little by little. The brain, the control center of memories, emotions, and their very identity now gets less oxygen and nutrients from an ever-slowing bloodstream. Precious memories like their wedding day, the first time they held their grandchild, or a warm family dinner start to blur, like pages in a book erased by time. They don't just forget where they put things, they forget the things that once defined who they were. And with every lapse, you feel like you're losing them, not because they're physically gone, but because they're losing themselves right in front of you. Think of Susan, 85 years old, a woman who was once the living book of her family in a small town in Georgia. She could recount every detail from the day her grandfather proposed by the lake to the first steps of her grandson. But now, she sits quietly in a corner of the room, her eyes vacant. "Where's Tommy?" she asks, even though Tommy, now 15, stands right in front of her. "What day is it today?" She repeats 5 times in an hour, though her daughter, Emily, has answered with a forced smile. Every name, every memory Susan once held like treasure slips from her grasp, leaving Emily with a wordless pain. "Mom's still here, but she's not the mom I used to know." She withdraws from conversations, silent for hours, not because she doesn't want to speak, but because she no longer has the strength to connect, to feel like she once did. This isn't an isolated case. According to the Alzheimer's Association of America, 1 in 3 people over 85 in the U.S. faces severe cognitive decline, a chilling number that makes you shudder when you think of your own loved one. When oxygen no longer flows evenly to the brain, when nerve cells slowly die off, they start forgetting their grandchildren's names, losing their way in the home they've lived in for decades, or growing distant, indifferent to things that once made them laugh. Sometimes Susan is lucid, telling an old story with a faint smile, then minutes later, she drifts into a world no one can reach. It's not just confusion, it's a sign their body and mind are preparing to leave, leaving you with a pain like losing them a second time. Don't try to force them to remember, or drag them into long conversations that only makes them more confused. Instead, speak gently, with a soothing tone like a lullaby, and create a safe space, for example, labeling the kitchen cabinet or their favorite chair to make them feel secure in their fading world. If you see your loved one starting to forget familiar things or sitting silently like a stranger, don't ignore it. It's a warning that their mind is slipping away. Stay with them, hold their hand tight, because even if they can't speak, they can still feel your love. Every moment you can still hold on to them, even just a fleeting glance, is a precious gift before they lose themselves forever. Sign 4. Frequent infections and slow healing. Have you ever thought that a small cough or a tiny scratch on their hand could become a major threat to your loved one? When their immune system weakens, their body is no longer a sturdy fortress against illness. It becomes an old, fragile house, crumbling under the slightest breeze. Frequent infections and slow wound healing are clear signs that their body is losing the strength to protect and repair itself. Blood circulation slows, failing to carry enough oxygen or nutrients to where they're needed, leaving their immune system, once a brave sentinel, now exhausted, vulnerable to everything from a cold to small wounds that won't heal. It's not just about sickness. It's a warning that their body is growing more fragile than ever, like a dry leaf that could shatter with a single gust. Think of Tom, 79 years old, a man once proud of his robust health in suburban Chicago. He loved gardening, mowing the lawn, and never minded the rain or wind. But this year, he's battled pneumonia twice, each time a fight that left him coughing until his voice was hoarse, bedridden for weeks. One afternoon, he accidentally cut his hand fixing a fence, a small cut less than half an inch, but over a month later, it was still red, oozing, refusing to heal. His son, Daniel, watched his father with growing worry. "Dad used to be the strongest person I knew, but now he looks like he's about to break, just because of little things." Tom no longer laughs like he used to. He's exhausted, dreading every cough or new scratch, as if his body is surrendering day by day to enemies he once never noticed. This isn't rare in America. Data from Medicare shows that people over 75 have a risk of infection 3 times higher than younger people, a cold fact reflecting the truth that their bodies can't fight bacteria or viruses anymore. Pneumonia, urinary tract infections, or small skin sores become regular guests in their lives, each illness lasting longer, harder to cure. A small cut that heals in days for the young can take a month for them, because blood no longer flows fast enough to bring nutrients to their fragile skin. What's more worrying, these infection signs aren't always obvious, not always high fevers or sharp pain, but sometimes just unusual tiredness or fleeting confusion, making it easy to overlook until it's too late. Don't chase strong medicines or expect them to recover like before. Instead, focus on protecting that fragility. Keep things clean, change their clothes, often to avoid bacteria. Use moisturizer so dry, cracked skin doesn't become an entryway for infection. Small acts that can be their final shield. If you see your loved one constantly sick or a small scratch lingering unhealed, don't think it's normal. It's a sign. Their body is weakening every minute. Stay with them. Wipe the sweat from their brow. Keep them clean and warm, because in this phase, your tender care is the only thing left to fight the growing fragility before it sweeps them away forever. Sign 5. Major changes in breathing or circulation. Have you ever heard your loved one's breathing once? Steady like a lullaby that puts you to sleep, now turn into hurried, broken sounds, as if each breath is a battle to hold on to life. When breathing grows difficult, when their hands and feet feel ice cold despite extra blankets, it's not just a sign of old age, it's the final warning that their body is mustering its last strength to keep the heart beating, to keep the lungs working. The heart and lungs no longer have the power to fight on. Blood pulls back from the hands and feet, focusing on vital organs to sustain survival, like a sinking ship saving its last fuel for the main cabin. This is the moment you realize time is racing faster than ever, each breath a reminder that they're on the final edge, and you have so little time left to be with them, to say you love them before it all stops. Think of Linda, 88 years old, a woman whose hymns once echoed through a small church in Kansas. Her voice was once strong, warm, but now she gasps for air even just sitting up from bed, each breath short, like it's sliced in half. Her granddaughter, Sarah, recalls with teary eyes, "I just wanted to help her stand to get water less than 3 feet from bed to table, but she had to stop, clutching her chest, panting like she'd run a mile." Linda's hands and feet are always freezing, even with the heater on full blast, even with Sarah wrapping her in 2 thick blankets. Her skin is pale, fingertips slightly blue, as if life is draining from the parts she once used to hug her granddaughter tight. Sarah holds her hand, trying to warm it with her own heat, but inside is an urgent fear. "I know she doesn't have much time left, and I just want to be with her, even for 1 more minute." This isn't uncommon in America. According to the American Heart Association, 25% of people over 80 face serious circulation problems, a number chilling enough to make you tremble when you think their heart is overworking to pump blood, while their lungs can't exchange oxygen like before. Their breathing might falter, fast then slow, sometimes with wheezing or a dry cough that lingers. Some feel stifled even sitting still, needing high pillows to breathe easier, as if lying flat means facing suffocation. Cold hands and feet, bluish skin aren't just signs of poor circulation, they're signs. The body is giving up parts it no longer needs, saving the last energy for the faint heartbeats still remaining. Don't force them to breathe deeply or move much. That only adds pain in their final moments. Instead, keep the room cool and airy, place a small fan by the bed, or use a humidifier to make the air more comfortable, helping them breathe easier, even just a little. If you see your loved one struggling to breathe, their hands and feet cold, or their skin changing color. Oddly, don't hesitate, it's an urgent warning, they're at the very end. Stay with them, rest your hand on their shoulder, whisper words of love, because now your presence matters more than any medicine. Every weak breath is a reminder, time is running out, and all you can do is hold their hand tight, letting them know they're not alone in these fragile final moments. When you've read this far, pause for a second and think about the journey we've just taken, the 5 quiet but weighty signs your loved one's body might be sending you. If you see them thinning day by day, clothes hanging loose, no longer fitting, if fatigue clings to them like a shadow, leaving them too weak to leave their chair, if their memory fades, turning them into a stranger in their own home, if small coughs or scratches become persistent foes, or if each breath is a struggle, their hands cold despite your embrace, don't panic. Don't let fear sweep you away. Instead, see this as a call to prepare, to seize every moment left with them, making their final days into complete memories. This isn't the time to deny, it's the time to act, right now, because every moment you delay is a moment you might lose forever.